Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me in this Check and Connect training. Basically, the focus of Check and Connect is to foster relationships with our students so that they have an adult in the building who they can form a strong relationship with. And this person can also basically be someone that they can count on for help and help them problem solve with the expectation that they would be increasing their productivity. It is an evidence based program and has been shown to increase school completion data or school completion numbers with academic and social competence. There's 4 components. They would have each student that's in this tier 2 program would be assigned a mentor who's going to work with them for a minimum of 2 years. Something that I tried to explain to everyone that came to the training initially was that if we find that the relationship or connection that you have with your student is not one that is effective, maybe you feel as though you're not getting through to them, or they're feeling frustrated, or it's just difficult for you guys to form that strong connection, that is okay. And I just need to know, and I'm happy to give you assign a different student to you. There's nothing wrong with that. It would include regular checks where you'd be meeting at a minimum of 1 time per week. This is for a very short period of time, maybe 5-10 minutes, where you'd be collecting data on a form that I'll give you. Very easy. It's made to be very user-friendly. In the event that you find that there's interventions that need to be put into place, that's when you would use me or other student personnel professionals in the building to come up with interventions or activities, clubs, referrals for the student, okay? And then the last component is engagement with families. My goal in regard to engagement with families is to have a meeting with the student and their family prior to the beginning of your working with them. That way, to cut down on some of that reaching out that you would have to do. I want this to be just something that is not super time consuming for you, and where you have to constantly, be trying to reach out to people and, make it so that this is an enjoyable experience for everyone. There will be engagement with families, but at least once you have that first face-to-face, hopefully we can just limit it to emails or phone calls, okay? The 3 core elements of the program are building a relationship with the student, being able to problem solve the issues that come up, and being persistent. This is not going to work overnight, and we definitely need the kids to know that we're in this for the long haul. So the actual duties are going to include students' attendance, grades, and behavior, and give them regular feedback, communicate with their families, and initiate efforts to keep the youth engaged in school. That pretty much sums up what your entire responsibility is. So what we were able to do is anybody that's going to be a mentor will actually have a 10th period in their schedule. And kids that are assigned to you will be the only ones in that class, per se. So that way you're able to look at their attendance, grades, and behavior. So you have information that you need. You'd need to collaborate with adults that are already involved with the youth. So that would be introducing yourself to the teachers that are on the student schedule, letting them know that, hey, I'm working with this student, and please reach out to me if there's an issue. Communicate regularly with them. then facilitate communication and promote problem solving between home and school. I'm not sure if I had mentioned this already, but what I intend to do is have an opening meeting for each student with the mentor and the parent, or at least attempt to sign or to schedule that, and then that way it kind of alleviates some of that need for you guys to actually be reaching out to to meet with them unless you feel that it's absolutely necessary. I'd like it so that all you have to really worry about is maybe sending an email once in a while or making a phone call. Again, I just want this to be easy for you and not something that is taxing and you feel as though you're overwhelmed with. Determine and document student progress and mentor effects on a regular basis. There will be a very easy form that you get that you would fill out each time you meet with a student. It's very, very straightforward. You're really just checking boxes off, so it's easy. It does say also attend student meetings. That's not necessarily something that you have to do. Of course, if it's convenient and you're able to, that would be wonderful. But I think also, it's just as important for you to reach out and let either myself know, maybe I can attend the meeting, or if it's a student with an IEP, perhaps letting their case manager know that you'd like to just stay in the loop, or the vice principal, they'll be aware that you're working with the students. So it's just having that the open line of communication and being able to advocate as you can. And I would ask that you respond to, if a parent does call you or email you, just that we get back to them within the 24 hours. So what do? I'm here to keep students connected at school and with learning. Next slide. So what do? One of the requirements is that we would work with each student for a minimum of 2 years. Now, nobody's held to that. And I mentioned before that I think it's very important that we are open and honest with ourselves and each other about whether or not we can, the relationship is working. So, sometimes you're going to be paired with someone that you just don't click with, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. So, a situation like that might come up where, we don't, where you would change. However, the idea is to have some longevity and consistency with the students. So, it could be the 2 years. It could be, if it's a freshman that you get this year, you might end up working with them for 4 years. But everything is going to be individualized. So this is just something to keep in mind, okay? And the idea is that you're going to be regularly checking on their school adjustment, their behavior, their progress. You're going to look at interventions. And when we say interventions, it's not about you providing counseling services. It's about you saying to the kid, hey, you know what? Maybe you would really benefit from getting signed up at the YMCA after school, or you enjoy sports. Let's find out when the volleyball team is meeting, or the volleyball club is meeting. It's things like that. You want to help them establish that connection to school and learning and being able to be socially and academically competent here at Vineland High School. You are not expected to be a disciplinarian or expected to parent them. You are here to be a trusting adult that they can have a non-biased conversation with in regard to their competencies. So that is really what the expectation is. And if I'm repeating myself, I apologize, but I really want to stress that if anything starts to feel as though it's too much for you, you need to refer them or refer to me to let me help you with that, because there might be situations that come up that you're not equipped to deal with, and I'm happy to step in at that point, and then we'll readjust the plan. So step one, this is all very easy, self-explanatory. Step one is going to be the introductions to the target students. It's always going to be there's always going to be an emphasis on building rapport. It's going to be the number one thing. If you cannot build a rapport with the student, the connection will not work. The program will not work for them or for you. So I encourage you, again, if that can't happen, let's talk about it. So there's an example here. This is purely just an example. You can read that over and tailor it to the person, tailor it to the educational level or academic level, that the cognitive level that the student is on, and to something that makes you feel comfortable. I think anytime we have like some rehearsed spiel, we feel a little bit unnatural, and you don't need to do it this way, but this is a good starter. And I also have handouts for everyone that decides to be a mentor with like icebreaker questions and different tools that you can use to be able to get some information out of the students. So you can go ahead and read that on your own. The example on this slide is just an easy way to explain the program. Again, tailor it to what you think is appropriate. So step 2 would be the introduction to the parents. You form the relationship with the student. Now you're going to introduce yourself to them. Again, hopefully that won't have to happen because they'll already have met you, if we can make that happen. Like I mentioned, we're going to attempt to have a face-to-face meeting. And when I say a meeting, I'm in my mind, I see it as a very quick introduction where I can explain the program, let them know that their student is going to participate in this, and you're able to kind of let them know that you're the one that'll be working with them, and just be yourself and let them get a feel for who you are. Again, here are some examples that you can use when meeting with them. But to the left, you'll see that Check and Connect feels that it's important that parents hear the mentor say, your child is important, and if we work together, we can make a positive change and help them be more successful in their schoolwork. So a lot of times, those are like those keywords or hot phrases that get people on board, and that I think is going to be a little piece of the battle that we run into. But I'm confident that once they see the benefits, we're going to have a very successful experience. This slide you guys can read yourself. I've already gone over all of that. It's more about the parent contact. Step three would be communicating with teachers. As I mentioned before, you're going to have access to the students via Genesis as if they have a 10th period class with you. This way you're able to see basically the demographic information that you would need, just like any other student in one of your classes, and their grade book, their teachers, their schedule, and things of that nature. Having ongoing communication with their teachers is going to be critical. So, and often once they understand that the kind of information you're seeking from them, and they see the the response that it has. They're very, the experience of the program has been that teachers become very forthcoming in providing information to the mentor before you even have to ask. So, it really should just be looked at as a relationship. It is very important that you are dependable and follow through on requests, just as a sign of showing respect for the teacher's goals and for the program. And that's just basic work 101, getting along with our coworkers and letting them know that you can definitely, that you're reliable. So, and communication is always confidential. So what you don't want to do is be walking down the hallway, and even if you think that you aren't giving out identifying information, it could be overheard by another student that does actually know who you're talking about, because they're familiar with whatever it is you're speaking of. Maybe they heard about it. So we ask that you don't do that. So we need to maintain confidentiality the same way you already do with all of your other students. So step 4 would be using the monitoring form. So how do we monitor all of this? You will get a form. We have made it electronic to, so you don't have to carry things around with you, nice and easy. I do have paper copies if you'd prefer that. But the idea is that you're systematically monitoring the level of engagement of the target students using this form. And the program says that it is essential for students at risk of disengagement or dropout for 2 reasons. It provides a systematic and efficient way to connect students with immediate interventions, and it provides data-based link to students' educational progress and performance. This is going to be extremely helpful when we have to determine whether a student needs to perhaps advance to Tier 3, or maybe a teacher wants to send them, submit their name for INRS. This is going to count as an intervention, and then we have the data to back it up. So you'll see there's slides that show you what the form looks like, and I'll be giving everybody copies of it. It's very easy. It's made to be quick and efficient. What are the guidelines for successful checking? What indicators are we looking at? So we're going to focus on these 3. Attendance, which would include tardiness, absenteeism. That is a mistake. It will not be cutting class, because that will fall under the referrals for behavior. So behavior will be looked at, referrals, detentions, ISS and OSS, and then academic performance, failing classes, behind in credits, and pass rates for exit exams. What we've determined is that students will be eligible if they have if they meet all 3 of these criteria: 10 or more absences, 7 or more referrals that do not include standard of dress, and failing 1 or more classes. Okay, and just a little background information. We had to kind of determine what is the most efficient way to do this. Because we have such a high volume of students, I needed to put some kind of strict parameters on it. If we were to get 50, 60, 70% of the staff to be mentors, we could probably open that up to several more students. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind if you're doing the program and you enjoy it. Feel free to spread the word. Okay. So how often are you going to meet with the student? We ask that you meet weekly, and that can be for 10 minutes during homeroom, which is actually what I want to try and do, is have you paired up with somebody that might already be on your schedule, so that you don't have to disrupt, their classes or yours. You can meet with them more frequently, even if it's every day. That is up to you. I just ask that you would meet with them weekly. But if they're showing signs like that they're ready to drop out, or if you're seeing like a decline in their attendance, behavior, performance, that's going to be one of those times where, one, you want to talk to me, we need to talk about interventions, and two, maybe if it's feasible for you to meet with them more often. We also want you to consider meeting with them on different days of the week, so that they don't know, like, oh, okay, well, it's Tuesday, I'd better go today because I know Mrs. Engel is going to be calling me down. But if I calm down every random days of the week, then that student is more likely to actually be in school on a more regular basis with the expectation that you would be calling them. Okay, so this slide is a copy of the paper form of the check, basically. So what you would do is it gives you Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It gives you 4 slots for that. So it's 1 month goes on one paper, and you would just in each box put the number of absences they have, the number of D's or F's, and whether or not they met their reading and math standards on the state standardized test or exit exam. So that would be something that you do one time. And it's obviously going to stay the same for the whole year. You are then under the Connect section, you're going to mark the day when you had a formal or informal communication. So, like, an informal would be maybe you saw them in the hall or in the lunchroom and you stopped to talk for a minute. That would be informal. Formal would be that where you're actually pulling up Genesis and looking at their grade book and saying, like, hey, what's going on in English class? Things like that. You're going to mark down the day of the week when you did communicate or tried to communicate with family, other staff, outside agencies, and then there's a small part on the back where you can put in a monthly summary. Again, this is not meant to be time-consuming or overwhelming. Where it says basic interventions, you are basically just going to be marking off what you did. It's really that simple. And then there's the contact log and where you can put down whether or not they are engaged and doing well or showing signs of disengagement. Basically just being able to add to it your concerns. When we get to the point where there's a need for more intensive interventions, you're going to just mark it off in the box. And this is when I'll be receiving all of these. So I'll know at that point that there's definitely some red flags that we're seeing. And hopefully I can provide you with support at that point. In regard to the monthly summary of case notes, this is very easy. At the end of each month, you're going to write a brief description. We're talking 5 sentences or less. This does not have to be anything unless you feel it's necessary, but all we're looking for is a nice, clear, concise summary of what the interventions were, what you provided and what you attempted. So you might have a month where, like the second one says, that there was no contact this month, couldn't find the student, and had no response from parents. Or you might have a month where you're saying things like work closely with the family, the student, and the school all month, collaborated with a social worker to arrange for health insurance and help family find counseling. This is not meant to be something that's tedious and time consuming, but just gives you the opportunity to give a brief summary. Some common interventions are listed on this form. You'll have a copy of that to actually read over yourself, but you can refer to this. Like if there is an attendance concern, here are some examples of interventions that you can use. Okay, so you want to actually show the students the form. It becomes a concrete way for them to also be able to identify where their weak areas are. So you're going to share the data with them. you're going to provide them with feedback on their progress, and then look at what their needs are, and then we're going to be, kind of determining at that point, like, hey, maybe I need to see you twice this week, or we'll continue at one time a week, or we might need to see each other every day. You're going to also use that information to problem solve, and it's a good way to it's a good tool to be able to use for them to actually reflect on how they feel about where they're at. So there's this is like an open, honest communication. And it also says, the second to the last one says, discussing the importance of staying in school and learning. It's okay to ask each student directly about the importance of staying in school. So one thing that I think is sometimes hard for us to comprehend is that not all kids, that's not a priority for all students. We definitely know the importance of it, so obviously we want to encourage them to maintain their to maintain their presence here in the school and get their high school diploma. What this might really spark, though, is okay, so maybe higher education, after graduation is not going to be a big goal of yours, but my goodness, there's so many things that you can do once you get the high school diploma to be successful and, to be a giving part of the community without having to go on to college or to, another school. So it's just a real honest conversation. So basically, when an intense intervention is necessary, you're addressing, again, the check data. This is kind of when things become a little more personal. So some of the interventions might be just beyond what you would do under basic interventions. And the idea is still the same. You're going to promote their participation in school, identification within the school, and academic performance. And again, I'll be monitoring all of these forms. So if I see that it's intensive intervention upon intensive intervention, then I know maybe I need to step in, or maybe the guidance counselor needs to get involved. This is absolutely going to be a team effort. So that wraps up the PowerPoint. The goal at this point would be, we're ready to begin. I will continue to identify students on a bi-weekly basis. So once they fit into that criteria, they would be assigned to one of you, and I'll set up the meeting and we can get started. So I'm here as a resource. You're not expected to do this cold. I'll be here to support you. And if you have any questions, please let me know. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time and energy to really help make the changes that are necessary here at Vineland High. We have an amazing group of staff, an amazing group of students, and I think that when we have programs like this, that we really put our all into. The climate here has the ability to change immensely, and I think it's all going to be worth it. So thank you. You are appreciated.